Thank you, Steve. Members of the Canadian automotive industry, fellows from the global automotive industry as it was known in the North Americas, ladies and gentlemen. I must thank that this opportunity given to me the second time over. The first time I was here addressing the AGM was in 2009 at Hamilton. And we all know, we just heard what 2009 was all about. Those painful days, we don't need to remind about. And since then, a lot has happened. I think more or less, and that's where the topic is today, that it's a revitalized auto sector. I think the opportune time for this and how to capture the opportunity, and I think rightly so, as since morning a lot has been talked about the emerging markets, is to talk about India and how within India that we are looking at the auto industry and how it is evolving. In terms of the basic industry and how it is evolving, I think we also heard from various speakers that 17% of the industry is going to remain in North America, the rest is moving elsewhere, so the fulcrum is moving. But one thing that can't go away, and we can't take it away, is the glorious past. And I think this conference is opportune in that sense as well, that it's there right in the hub where this all happened. So how I'm going to look at it is that I'm going to talk about a bit of the economy. You heard in bits and parts from various speakers about how India is doing. It just be validating a couple of points and how the economy is emerging, then the current scene in the Indian auto sector, and then specific to how one can leverage the India advantage. And then, finally, as a partner of Apma, how we can help you do that. We just heard about the population, and it's definitively also need to know that besides the demographics, which was in a limited way talked about, is that India is the most populous, youngest country in the world. The median age is 24. And that is something that we all need to recognize, because when you're young, there's a lot of aspirations for mobility. You need to aspire to do a lot of things, and that is why the automobiles become more and more important and the other aspects of the basic commodities such as cell phones, such as computers, also become important. And if you see that over the last few years, and even during 2008 and 9, India did grow at 7.8%. And if it keeps growing between 8 to 10%, every 7 to 8 years, it doubles its GDP. So presently from about $1.3 trillion, you can see in the next 20 years, it will easily go to about $5 trillion. And there is, and like it was said by the earlier speaker, that the devil is in the details. There is a rural economy which constitutes of about 600 million people, and there is a urban economy which constitutes of approximately similar amount of strength. And there's a lot of urbanization which is happening. And in that trend, even though the point of inflection for the auto industry, which is about $1,000 per capita, the urban population is around close to $4,000, while the rural population is close to about $300 to $500. So you see a lot of demand for the two-wheelers happening in the rural areas, and thus that's where a lot of that is getting absorbed, and you see the automobiles which are getting more and more absorbed in the urban areas. And like I said, that it's the aspirations of the young people which drive the economy. They're approximately more than the population of the US and Canada put together is the population of 6 to 16 children in India. 350 million children are between 6 to 16. So you can just imagine what's going to be happening in the next decade or so. The last that I heard of, that we had 670 million cell phones, and we are selling nearly 20 million cell phones month on month. So you can just imagine if this is going to be the trend, what it is going to do to the aspect of the automobiles. And definitively, like the earlier speakers said, there's a lot happening in infrastructure. Nearly $500 billion are getting added, which are going into airports, which are going into ports, which are going into roads, which are going to telecom, etc. The point to note here is that Indian economy is a demand-driven economy. It's not like the Chinese, which is an investment-driven economy. It's most of these projects are based on private-public partnerships. They are not funded by the state. The state does not have that kind of resource for these projects. So that's what India is all about. And that's why you always will see a bit of a lag between the demand and the investment. And that is very, very key. If you see our neighbor China, they are trying to move from an investment-driven economy to a demand-driven economy, while we are actually a demand-driven economy. This is an interesting slide which needs to know, and this was talked by the economist early in the morning about, and there are some deficits in that environment. Whenever you go to a developing economy, there are bound to be challenges, but there are various strengths as well. And the key is that there is a recognition that inflation is there. And there's proper cognizance has been taken by the government, and fiscal policies and monetary policies the government is trying to take care of such events. So if you see that while the financial world was in a crisis, as we call it the Lehman Brothers, post-Lehman Brothers era, India was, like Canada, a very, very stable economy in terms of the financial system. However, the part on the left does need to be taken care of, and that is a risk within the economy. The key drivers, to sum them up again, there are households which have disposable incomes, and it's the disposable income which drives whether the FMCGs or the other consumer goods and the automobiles in that era. The urbanization is something of a given. The rural population cannot sustain on the rural incomes, So there has to be an urbanization, and manufacturing is the key way that the government thinks we need to go. So this talks about the strengths of the economy plus the few challenges